Law enforcement. The Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy is the only one of its kind, a semester-long evening program focused on diversity and learning how to handle the biggest issues facing law enforcement officers today. We train recruits to be community-oriented police officers. You'll graduate with confidence, ready to meet the needs of our communities. Located in Jefferson City, Missouri. Learn more at lincolnu.edu.
We are back here on the ship live from Radio Row at the Los Angeles Convention Center. I have with me a very special guest. I got a chance to talk to him 2 years ago under different circumstances, but with me right now is Fox Sports Radio's Doug Gottlieb. Of course, you can hear him nationally on the Doug Gottlieb Show. Doug, thank you so very much for joining me this week.
The pleasure's all mine, dude. I'm so fired up to see you again.
I got a chance to see you briefly a couple weeks ago in Lawrence, Kansas, when you were calling the Kentucky KU game. Probably got to ask you not to come back through because Kentucky beat the hell out of Kansas.
Oh, man,
and
unbelievable.
That was just a bad weekend overall in Kansas City.
Yes.
With them losing and, of course, the Chiefs losing on Sunday. But as usual, love to just catch up with you, see how things are going with you, how the show and everything going with you right now.
Everything's great, and it's awesome too. After last year not having, or I don't know if they had it, we didn't go to radio or whatever.
I was there.
You did?
It was a skeleton crew.
Yeah. Just to be back and to see old faces, and then we've had, as good a series of games in the playoffs as you can have. And if you're like us, where you love sports, nothing better than when people actually love the games and talking about the sports.
What's with it being in your backyard in Los Angeles, what's the work schedule week like for you with all the stuff that you do?
We get here at 9:30. I mean, look, I think East Coast is a little bit even more beneficial to be in my time slot, which is 3 to 6. That means if you get there at noon, you got 3 hours to tape things, and you can have pretty much any guest you want. 9 o'clock's a little bit early. So, I mean, I'm up normal early, 7 o'clock, getting coffee, working on the show, and then roll in here a couple hours before, tape some interviews, and put it together, and you have a show. It's Super Week's fun, and we've tried to be a little bit more judicious in terms of not just throwing on every guest, because there are sports topics to talk about. There's the NBA trade deadline. There's the coaching hirings, and those two things mainly. There's a little bit of college football in terms of topics, so it gives us a chance to do the show and have outstanding guests at the same time.
Before the season started, who were your Super Bowl picks, and did it look anything like what we're going to see this Sunday?
I thought the Rams had a chance. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I thought the Bengals. The Bengals were so bad 2 years ago, and clearly better last year, but Burrow hurt his knee, and there was all those questions in the preseason about his level of confidence in playing on that knee. And then remember, Jamar Chase couldn't catch in the preseason.
He couldn't catch nothing in the preseason.
But he hadn't played football in a year. So there was just a lot of questions. I was under the impression that it would be Chiefs, and look, I thought the Chargers had a great chance based upon their level of talent. You got Derwin James, you got Joey Bosa, and you got Justin Herbert. There's questions. You have a new head coach. Everybody thought the Bills. I think my picks were honestly Bills and Packers, and neither came through. But most of the other teams were about what we thought, with the exception of Cincinnati was a real surprise. And look, I think one of the reasons those wild card games were bad, because we forgot how bad the wild card games were because the divisional games were so good. Yeah. But the wild card was because the Chargers fell on their face. They had all the COVID issues and lost games they shouldn't have. The Ravens were ravaged by injuries, right? Those are two absolute. And the Browns were ravaged by injuries. And, by the way, their quarterback played poorly. So those three teams, you substitute them in at the bottom of the playoffs, and now the AFC is crazy competitive, and you could do the same thing with the NFC as well.
Yeah, I had Chiefs Bucks. I thought they were going to run it back this year, and looked like it was going to go that way until things happened the way they did. I do want to ask you, of course, your thoughts on Sunday's matchup, and I do want to get to some LA talk, but your thoughts on Sunday's matchup and who you think is going to win it.
I like the Rams to win it. I do think that we're kind of crowning Matt Stafford a little bit early. He did throw basically an arm punt to what would have changed the game to Tart catch the football in the NFC Championship game. And so they were very result oriented, right? Matt Stafford won. That means Detroit. We know Detroit was poorly run, but he wasn't perfect when he was there, and he played pretty well at times in the playoffs. He hasn't played great in the playoffs. So I'm not as enamored with Stafford. He's been that guy where he does have a big arm, but like most big arm guys, he forces things or throws one astray. And I don't know how the Bengals, how they do it against this team. I just don't. That pass rush is phenomenal. It's not just Aaron Donald. It's the fact that you have to double Aaron Donald, and then they have dudes all over. And then you got Jalen Ramsey, and he can get burned, but he can also make a play when you're trying to throw the ball to Jamar Chase. They have other guys as well. I think the Rams win, but I have no level of confidence just because a lot of this stuff, the Bengals stuff, doesn't make sense that they're here. It just doesn't.
Trust me.
You're not supposed to. It's one thing. You're not supposed to be able to get behind. Forget about beating the Chiefs. You get behind 14 points 2 times to the Chiefs. Here they were down even more.
Yeah.
And then you come back. You're not supposed to win in Kansas City. You're not supposed to be able to stop their offense in the second half. Usually in the second half is when you give up points to all their playmakers. They got better at both games when time went on. So a lot of those things don't make sense, which leads you to kind of like, well, maybe I'm missing something on the Bengals. Maybe I do throw a little change down considering it's a 4.5-point line.
This offseason, a lot of crazy things have been going on. I actually do listen to your podcast. So, I actually do listen to other people's shows. But you obviously had a different take than others when it came to Brian Flores, filing the suit against the NFL. Your thought, I guess, my thoughts, my question to you is why that position? So more or less, I mean, do you think he doesn't have merit on his suit?
No, I don't think he has merit in his suit. I think we can all sit here and be reasonable people and go like, look, the numbers of black head coaches is just, it's not good, not enough, just not. But that can be, these two things can be true. That can be true, and you could say there's not racist or racism policies currently in the NFL which have kept him or others from getting a job. Those jobs are hard to get. Okay, Denver just fired a guy who's been head coach for 2 years. He's in the league 35 years and a hell of a defensive coordinator. And he finally got a shot and it lasted 2 years, and then he's out, right? Like the jobs are, we make it out like everybody is somehow preordained to get these coaching jobs. They're not. It's also a copycat league, right? You hire guys that are, I mean, look, you have 2 young head coaches. They're 2 offensive kind of wizards. And so what do the Vikings do? They go and hire the offensive coordinator who's a young. What do the Dolphins do? Kind of same thing, right? We're copying. This is working. We're going to try and do the exact same thing. So that's a portion of it. If you just look at Brian Flores, and people act like that's some damning text that Bill Belichick sent him, the reality to it is, and you know this from the basketball world, like in covering college basketball, I've sent texts to people who are interviewing for a job. Man, I heard you're their guy. Right?
I've sent a lot of texts. I wish I could take that.
But there's no, I felt like it's intellectually dishonest why and how he got the interview with the Giants. Okay. John Mara is a Boston College alum. So is Brian Flores. Okay. There's that as a connection. John Mara worships the ground that Bill Belichick coaches on. That's why he got, and Brian Flores, everybody thinks he's a pretty good coach. Right? So he got a legitimate opportunity. Now, was he the odds-on favorite? No. When you hire a GM from Buffalo and everybody thinks Brian Daboll is a quarterback guru and they need somebody to try and fix Danny Dimes, that makes sense. Like all of this makes sense. And he interviewed and they liked him and they brought him back for another one and they liked him. They chose to go a different way. Like that's how it's supposed to work, And I think he would have gotten the Houston job had he not sued. I think that's why Houston fired David Culley. Matter of fact, several NFL people I know believe that's why they hired David Kelly.
You think they were trying to bring in Josh McCown?
No, I mean, look, I think there is an infatuation with Josh McCown.
Okay? I forgot where. I don't know where.
Well, if you followed him late in his career, he was basically a quarterback coach for Sam Darnold when he was in New York, right? Like, and the idea of head coaching, you don't have to be great at everything. You have to hire people that are good at everything else and trust those people.
My only pushback is as you mentioned earlier,
right.
With Denver firing Vic Fangio, and you talk about, it's hard in the experience. But it kind of. I mean, you can't say that about Josh McCown because he had no coaching experience. I mean, volunteer head coach.
It was
at a
18
high
years
school.
as a backup quarterback. Like
Well,
that's you're basically a coach. That guy knows more about how to run an offense, coach an offense, how to operate, how men work in the locker room, how to work with people than coaches do. From my personal perspective, I mean, like, look, if we're going to say, go ahead,
Fangio, I would agree with, but I'm saying, but if you put him up against others, as if you look at Brian Flores' lawsuit, put him up against the Bieniemy or even Byron Leftwich. I mean, if Byron Leftwich would be
okay.
more.
So why didn't Byron Leftwich get the Jacksonville job?
If I'm correct, because he wanted a certain GM, I believe from
the GM
from here,
right? He wanted the GM to be fired, right? Trent Baalke,
but
he wanted Adrian.
Somebody, I think, from the Chargers or something.
No, he's from the Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona Cardinals, yes.
Okay, Adrian Wilson to be with him, which, by the way, is a smart play. Like, Leftwich has learned from all these guys, which is like
work for Josh McDaniels,
right? You bring your GM with you, which is what they're doing, what they did in Buffalo, right?
Raiders, yeah.
Okay, what's what they did in Buffalo, which is, they hired Sean McDermott, and he went and got Bean from Carolina. You get somebody who thinks that's why the Houston thing made sense, because those are all Patriot guys. Brian Flores became available. He was, by most people's estimation, they thought that deal was moved so that they get Brian Flores. And then Flores sues the league. And you're like, how do we hire a guy who's suing the league? Look, my issue is, if you're going to call Denver a race, if you're going to say Denver says racist hiring practices, when he interviewed there, they had just fired a black head coach, right? I mean, Houston, the new owner is the son of the old owner, but the old owner, Bob McNair, Rick Smith was there for a decade as an African-American general manager. Like, I think that we have to get to a place to where a guy gets a job because he gets a job. Or like, there's reason. A lot of it is the ties or what a specific need is. And Flores ran into the exact same thing that most of the Patriots guys have run into, which is, if you're not with other Patriots guys, you have a way in which you've done business, which you've seen Bill Belichick do business, and everybody doesn't want to do business that way. They
and
just
he is the Patriot guy, which is crazy.
Huh?
I said, he is the Patriots guy, which is crazy.
No, but all those guys, they've all suffered the same fate, where they come in and they act like Belichick, and they're very demanding, and he's very demanding.
Yep.
And if you didn't come up in that organization, he worked with, that was an all black front office in Miami. Those are the guys that wanted him out. Wasn't the owner. The owner was sitting there going like, I can't make it. Who do I choose? The front office? And I might have sided with Brian Flores, but I wasn't there on a day-to-day basis, so I don't know. I think Flores is a hell of a coach, but being a coach is more than about the X's and O's. And even he manages down really well. Can you manage up? Your general manager is still your boss. Okay. Your director of player personnel, your assistant general manager. And those guys, that's where he had the beef with. So, but again, that part of it is kind of the minutia detail to why it ended in Miami. If you're going to do I think there are interviews that are only done because of the Rooney Rule? Sure. But the truth is that those interviews, I'll give you an example myself. Okay.
Eric Bieniemy.
Well, no, I can tell you about Eric Bieniemy. Like, I know somebody who interviewed him last year, and they said the same thing that I've heard from other people that interviewed him last year, which was, well, like Eric Bieniemy, I didn't really have a plan. Didn't he's like, I'm Eric Bieniemy. Like, okay, do you have a set plan as to how you are going to change our franchise? And in comparison and lined up against other interviewees, they all went a different way. And that's been the overall sense, which is, it's not about calling plays. People say, well, he's got to call plays. Andy Reid call. That's bull. You don't have to call plays to be a head coach.
I agree.
Okay? You don't. You have to be able to lead men, but you also have to have a vision for specifically that organization. And again, maybe he did too many interviews last year. Okay. And that to have specifics with this organization that I talked to a long time after the interview, maybe it's because he did like 6 of them that he couldn't be as specific with them. But their feeling was he wasn't that specific. He didn't have a set plan. He didn't know coaches that he was going to hire. Some of our personnel, like, he wasn't as familiar with. And it wasn't that they didn't like him. Again, the guy I talked to who's doing the hiring said, I walked in with no real feeling for who he was. I walked away saying, I really like Eric Bieniemy. I just didn't want him to be. I just didn't feel like measuring up against who we hired. He'd be my head coach. So, and here's the damning one to Eric Bieniemy is Ryan Poles is in Kansas City. Okay, Ryan Poles gets a job. They have a young quarterback to develop in Chicago. He chooses Eberflus from Indy. So usually you take a guy with you who you were there with, who you saw work.
Now, that's why you say that now, because I made a post about this because now I don't know how often you watch Undisputed or anything, but they did talk about that last week after the Brian Flores thing, and Skip Bayless made an excellent point that he said that he talked to someone that's close to Andy Reid, that Andy Reid, because he had to vouch for him, obviously, the Bears going to contact him and Clark Hunt or whatever. He told him specifically that you do whatever it takes to bring, if I'm a vouch for you, in return, I need you to bring Eric Bieniemy up there for a legit interview, whether he gets the job or not. Please bring him up there. Now, he didn't do it. Now, I think that says more about Ryan Poles, the character, than it does Eric Bieniemy, because if Andy Reid says that and in return you don't do it, I mean, that would be like me asking you for a solid and you stick your neck out for me. You say the only thing I need you to do in return, bring somebody else along with you. And if I ignore that, that says something about me and my character, because I go against everything that you asked me to do for you. That's where I said on the posting. So I know a lot of people.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's an interesting dynamic to it. All I can tell you is that I think there has been a push by a lot of people outside of the league to hire Eric Bieniemy, and within the league, he's interviewed for a lot of jobs and hasn't gotten one. So all I can tell you is the specifics by which I was told, which is, I don't think he wasn't a candidate at Colorado, but that's some of the things that went on the staffs when he was at Colorado. It's a lot of old stuff, but in college it's different. In the NFL, it's just about, can you win games, right? Can you motivate guys? Can you win games? Do you have a vision for this organization? And I talked to 3 last year that interviewed, but one for a real long time. I had a long breakfasty, lunchy, coffee sort of conversation. And we went through all the different candidates. And what was specifically told me about Bieniemy was that, he didn't call plays, but that didn't bother them. What they felt like put him behind other candidates was the lack of specifics in what his vision was for the organization.
Good stuff to take back from you. LA stuff. What's going on with the Lakers, man? Are they going to get rid of Russell Westbrook or what?
You can find the problem with getting rid of Russell Westbrook now.
That salary.
Well, it's not just salary. It's like at this point in time, you're going to have to take on another bad contract, and you're probably going to have to give up draft picks as well. They got you over a barrel, and you're not going to make your team better. I don't know what you do with Russell Westbrook. It's been an abject disaster. Because if you play him, he's not good enough. If you don't play him, it's a question afterwards. And he doesn't provide you at either end of the floor what you need. And I mean, look, you can say they haven't been healthy. Last night they were healthy, and they got their doors blown up by the Bucks.
They did. Doug, look, I know you got lots to do, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate it. We'll do this again next year.
Always. Who you like in the game?
I'm going with the Rams because the Bengals and Patrick Mahomes cost me a lot of money.
What happened to Pat Mahomes in the second half?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I have no idea because, and I tell people, look, everyone talk about the 3 points at the end of the half, and I get that.
First play, second half.
But you still had the ball to come out of the half. You go down and score, and then when they got down to the 2 yard line, it's my opinion, I kept saying run the football. At least if you don't get in, you can let the clock run down. You eliminate the amount of time they get to get the ball back to try to go down and score. For whatever reason, you can blame it on Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes. I don't know why. On second and third down, you're going back to pass instead of run the football to get the ball.
I talked to an AFC West executive this morning, and we were talking about this exact thing, and he was like, I've never seen them that tentative. I've never seen them that tentative. Like, I've never seen.
Yeah, the second half, I'm not sure what happened.
I never seen Mahomes that tentative, and I never seen Andy that tentative with him. And I said, that reminded me of like Alex Smith play calling.
Yes.
Right? And I was like, you got Pat Mahomes. He's like, but Pat was tentative. Like, that was just weird.
It's funny you say
here's a guy that is.
That second half, yeah.
I mean, he's in the conversation, the best quarterbacks you've ever seen walk the face of the earth. And he was different that day.
And look, for the life of me, I can't figure out what happened in the locker room. And it's funny because a lot of people feel like he got shook. They got shook. Look, I have a problem with them going for it instead of the touchdown. My problem with it is you didn't throw the ball to the end zone versus.
Well, that was what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
5 seconds left, you throw it to the end zone where only Travis Kelce can catch it. If not, go throw it out of bounds. And then if you don't get a touchdown, you kick 3 points, and you extend your lead. You get the ball back, and you go score more points. You win the game, and you're in the Super Bowl.
And we're so. Brother, I don't know.
If it was that easy,
this is going to be a long off season.
Give me a long off season. Long off season.
Appreciate your time, brother.
Always pleasure.
All right, take care. We'll be back after this time now.
As you prepare for the big game, enhance the flavor of your foods. Serve up Gate sauce and seasonings made with fresh and flavorful ingredients. It's better for your meats, potatoes, vegetables, soups, and salads, and it's better for your plate. It's so good, and it's gluten-free. For that unmistakable taste, buy Gates. It's a Kansas City tradition. Go online at gatesbbq.com. Shipping all over the world. Hi, may I help you?
Where's Brandon Lang at?
Thinking about a career in law enforcement? The Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy is the only one of its kind, a semester-long evening program focused on diversity and learning how to handle the biggest issues facing law enforcement officers today. We train recruits to be community-oriented police officers. You'll graduate with confidence, ready to meet the needs of our communities. Located in Jefferson City, Missouri. Learn more at lincolnu.edu.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on Radio Row. And, of course, for those of you all who may have missed this man's tone, his voice, and his suits, but of course, I've picked him. I've taken that mantle and ran with it. We are joined by the one and only Michael Coleman. He is the sports director for KOTV ABC7. He's joining me all week on Radio Row. Of course, KOTV ABC7 is one of our sponsors this week. Mike, what's going on with you, man?
Well, first of all, you have upped your suit game, and I mean,
well, hold on. The last 2 years now, my suit's been been banging.
And what you put on this coming Sunday?
Hold on. Let's
jump on in.
Let's go jump on in real quick. Yeah, I was wondering. So we're also joined by one of the best, and he is of course the business of sports betting, memorabilia, NFTs, which somebody's got to explain to me what that NFT stuff is.
I know, right? Michael Irvin was talking about that earlier today.
The senior executive of Action Network HQ. We are joined by Darren Ravel. Did I say that correctly? Darren Ravel? Darren Smith. So appreciate you joining us. First of all, what brings you to Radio Row?
We're just talking about gambling. Gambling is now, front and center. For the Action Network, we basically, if you don't want to go with your gut, we have the data to back up. 25 years of data for gambling, and we just love talking about it. And just amazing to see how 5 years ago the NFL thought that gambling was the evil enemy, and then the money came and things changed. That's good. I'm not here to bash them. It's exciting, and living in the state of New Jersey and having 27 options on your phone to bet with. It's pretty insane. $11 billion bet for the last year in New Jersey alone.
Wow. Now I'm going to get up and change the camera so we can see you on camera. But now you're talking to a professional gambler, so we are finna talk that love talk right about now. So, but Mike, you got any questions you want to ask right
now? My question to you is, what made the change? I mean, did they realize, hey, wow, people, there's a niche out there and we're missing out on it. We got to get on top of it.
2018, once the Supreme Court reversed the Professional Advertising Protection Act of 1992, then states had the chance to make their individual decisions. And the NFL decided when there was a majority of states, that's when they would flip. But it wasn't the majority. Probably about 14 states were mobile, and last year they decided to switch from having just casino partners to having sportsbook partners, and it's incredible to see. Now that FanDuel is the biggest space here.
So it's not a coincidence that the NIL and what you just talked about kind of crescendo together. Am I right?
The NIL, I don't know what to think because. Name, image, and likeness in college. I have long been a proponent of players getting money for their jersey sales and for video games. But what this has become, because the NCAA is so scared, because they lost this Alston case last summer and restricting payments, the NCAA out of this. And now all these boosters are building up all these funds. And they're like, we don't care what endorsement the guy does. We just got to give him money to either stay here or get him to come. And no one's managing anything because the NCAA is all of a sudden on June 30th, a booster could not email or DM a player, and on July 1st, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, go ahead, do what you want. Like what? Like what is that? And it's fine if you want to make it a free market. Make it a free market. Let's call it what it is. But don't say it's marketing when it's a free market. Let's all play on the same level.
And it's funny you say that because I think it was Lane Kiffin of Mississippi a couple of weeks ago who who was literally whining about how Texas and how he couldn't recruit. And I'm like,
see, but I don't know. I don't know what Texas A&M is. All I know is what's above board. All I know is that Texas says, okay, let's have something called the Pancake Factory, where if an offensive lineman has a scholarship, we pay him $50,000 a year, and he's going to do charity for that $50,000 a year. Now, first of all, I don't think it's really a good look to pay someone for charity work, but that is so that someone like me doesn't come after him. Oh, Darren Ravel hates charity. Darren Ravel hates building houses. Like it's so weird. But even in that explanation, they said these offensive linemen haven't got paid $1,000 from anyone at NIL. So you're paying $50,000? Why? Because you want to get the kid to play there.
There needs to be a czar or something similar.
The NCAA was going to have a clearinghouse where is this organization now. The schools do have to approve the deals, but it's the schools. Come on. Are the states going to enforce some of these rules? Do you think the states are going to enforce Texas A&M or Texas?
Alabama.
I mean, come on. And is it cheating if everyone kind of knows
Right.
what it really is?
Right.
I mean, it's very confusing. I only say what I say. I love college football and college basketball, and I just want everyone to be on the same page. If you can't pay someone the same amount, fine. But let's call it what it is.
You look, you're big on the game. So, are there any particular bets or parlays that I should be aware of?
I shouldn't say this for my business, but the Super Bowl is so refined. Like we're at 4.5 right now. I don't think that number really moves. It's not going to move to any sort of key number. I don't really think there's much value on the total, 48.5. Like the average total is like 46, 47. I think there's too much flukiness. Either both are nervous and this is a 9-6,
13-3, yeah.
13-3 game, or there's or they're nervous and there's 2 or 3 major mistakes that cause easy touchdowns. So I'm not really there. Like I feel like I'm just not doing too much. Just let the casual people play. I'm going to bet live. I'll bet live and see how it goes. Probably would take the Rams money line because I'm not confident they're going to come.
The way you make this sound, it's a good analogy here. Like on New Year's, I don't go out on New Year's because all the rookies and amateurs are going to be out on New Year's, doing their thing. And I think you can apply the same thing to betting.
I just don't feel like there's much of a value if before the game. I think live. I play a lot. Probably 80% of my bets are live, so I'll just see kind of how it feels. And
what kind of bets are you doing live? I need to see. I need to talk to you. I mean, I do some live bets every night.
On a football Sunday, I have maybe 20 total bets and 15 are live.
I really shouldn't say this because they'll probably go back and pull. But when the Chiefs took on the Tennessee Titans. Now I had the Chiefs winning that game prior to the game. They were getting beat so bad I had to do a live in-game bet. That it would go under, and I did a parlay to get all my money back, which I did. And then later on that evening, I think I had the Arizona Cardinals beating somebody, and I put 400 on it, and it gave me plus 100. So, just for them to win straight out. So I took that and, made more money that day. Nah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
We don't do that. If you start buying, you're hitting the under, you're like, oh no, now it's not going to hit. Oh, let's just do it another 3 points. I'll never forget. There was a Hawaii San Jose State game, and the original total was 80, and I'm like, 80 points. I'm like, all right, I'll do the under there. And it turned out to be
100 some odd points. Yeah,
it was the only game last the year before last
Yep.
that there was not a punt in the game.
Yep, I remember that game too.
I took it under 82, under 84, under 88. It's like.
And I think it ended up like damn near 100, and because it was a high scoring game because I took the over on that game.
That's why. What can I do as gambling's taking over and live gambling's taking over? I like to talk about my losses and my horrible days.
I've had a lot of those too.
And I like to talk about my bankroll. I'm betting this much today. This is how much I'm betting, and I stick to that number.
What's with the mattress dude in Houston?
Oh, Mattress Mac. I mean, I think he's an addict, but he uses it for furniture promotions.
So good job with that.
Now he has it. The Bengals with the Super Bowl. You get $3,000 if you bought $3,000 more on mattress or furniture. You get it back if the Bengals win. His insurance policy is making the money when the Bengals win through the sports book. So he's got a 4.5
and gets a little bit over 7 if it hits. What other business do you have going on? I mean, talk to us about the NFTs that you're doing.
I mean, listen, I think we're all on tilt. I think we're all, cooped up in our houses, and we don't have normal human interaction, so we have to, spend money on cards, or spend money on autographs, or spend money on NFTs, which are essentially digital art or digital collectibles that are tied to the blockchain. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's just got to make your own decisions. Don't follow the masses. Just figure out don't buy crypto because your neighbor bought crypto. Figure out if it makes sense to you.
Now you've got the night.
Now I tell you, when I did buy $93,000 in digital horses, and my wife heard me talking about some digital stable. She's like, "Are you cheating on me? Why are you walking around the house? Like, you've never used earphones before. Now you're using those AirPods. Like,
oh man,
I was trying to buy and sell digital horses. And
that's funny in so many reasons.
41 days. I was in digital horses for 41 days before I got out. I made money, but it was hell.
I'm afraid to even ask what all that entail. But I do want to ask you, because you got now you've got the Rams winning, but you got a Super Bowl hat on. Now I'm pretty sure that means for a reason. What
I just like
it does kind of match the shirt too.
I made a hat. Tomorrow I have Stanley's Cup, KUPP. That's my hat tomorrow. So it's not that I support. Listen. It's amazing that he got here too. I can't believe it.
Where are you watching the Super Bowl at?
I will be in Vegas, so I'm going back to Vegas. Yeah, I was in Vegas this morning. I'll go back to Vegas.
I was in Vegas Sunday and came back Sunday, so I was up there for the Pro Bowl. So, man, look, I need to get some contact information from you, because whatever bet you do on Sunday, I need to follow along with. Because
if you follow me on the Action Network, it will text you when I bet something live.
Put that down, Action Network.
Yeah, let's do that right now.
So we on it right now.
Follow, you get the alerts. I bet something live. You can tell me.
Oh, on Twitter? Is that on Twitter? Or is it
Action Network or app, free app?
Okay, Action Network app. I'm going.
And when I go, it will text you. You can follow all these people, so you can tell all of us.
Yeah, Action Network.
I remember you in your reporting days.
Huh?
I remember when you were a reporter.
Yeah.
Okay, man. I'm doing it. So, Darren Ravel, man, how can people reach out to you on social media?
I don't want them to. I'm on Instagram at Darren Ravel. I'm on Twitter at Darren Ravel. I battle the social media war every day.
Yeah, I heard, one of your things, but look, I'm ultimate professional. So I'm not gonna put you on spot or anything like that, but. No, I don't do that. But wish you all the best. Do you miss being back in the sports world, or is this as close as you want to get to it?
I'm still doing this stuff. I mean, do I miss being at ESPN? I mean, I feel like I left ESPN because I asked if they wanted to do more gambling, and they're like, "No, we're good."
But not everybody wants to do it, right?
You sure? Okay. Disney is Disney, and we're not going to get into gambling, but okay.
Just a few years later, look at what they're doing now.
Boom.
Darren Ravel, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back at this time out.